What causes projects to fail? I've managed projects ranging from hundreds of thousands to billions of pounds, and these are the key factors from my experience. The myth, what people think causes projects to fail. Firstly, builders, contractors are bad. Secondly, materials become expensive. Thirdly, contractors make mistakes. Fourthly, everyone blames one another. And fifthly, usually the problem started long before construction began. What I've learned in over 30 years of project management of major projects, including railway projects, international developments, as well as major UK projects, is that there are recurring factors which need to be managed correctly in order to for projects to develop and to complete successfully. When projects fail, the consequences ripple far beyond the construction side. So the cost of failure results in investors losing money, developers losing profit, communities waiting longer for facilities that they are waiting for, opportunities disappear because of a failure of track record, and sometimes businesses never recover. The 20 key factors for project success or failure. I wrote a book called Project Deliverance, looking at the 20 key factors for project success or failure. It's published on Amazon. And in that book, I identified these key 20 factors that recur on every project and how they were applied over many projects that I've worked on, and also some examples that I didn't work on, and showed many successes, but also one or two failures as a result of some of these key factors not being addressed properly. Factor one is unclear objectives. The brief for the project isn't correct. It's not realistic for the budget and for the time scale and for the aspirations that there are on behalf of the stakeholders of the project. So firstly, this can result in there being no agreement on what success looks like. This can happen on particularly what could be called aspirational projects, where somebody's got an idea for example, a high revenue earning hotel, but the demand for the hotel and the market that it's aimed for hasn't been properly researched. So there's no consensus on what really that hotel should be. Should it be an apart hotel for tourists, or should it be a luxury hotel attracting international investors and visitors to a particular location? Those are the two extremes, but the point is that the brief for the project needs to be concise. There's an unclear definition of what is being delivered. This relates to the design and also the specification, and also not just the physical assets, but also the business model for what is being operated on the site. So when you're looking at big investments in large developments, it must be essential to get operational input, for example, from whoever is going to be managing the facility on an ongoing basis, because what you need is that sort of operational management input to the plant that is installed, the air conditioning, the electrics, accessibility for services, how these things are going to be managed. The design for a project is the result of a large number of parties collaborating, including the stakeholders for the operations, the management of the facilities, the investor in the facilities to clarify just what his level of investment is going to be and what quality of products he is going to receive for the investment he makes. So sometimes you find that stakeholders are pulling in different directions, and this can happen particularly on railway projects where the profit centres have been separated. There's a difference between the owner of the track and the operator of the track and the train operating companies. They've got different objectives totally, and the train operators must make a profit, so they're not prepared to invest necessarily large amounts of money in assets which do not directly benefit them. Poor leadership. Leadership is about decisions, not title. The choices made in the early stages of the project determine its trajectory. Wrong decisions at the start compound into costly problems that become impossible to reverse. Good leaders anticipate risk, communicate with all parties, and make tough calls early before small mistakes become catastrophic failures. Weak planning. Every pound spent fixing mistakes could have been spent creating value. So what you need to do is avoid delays, avoid rework. That's a disastrous situation. Avoid claims and avoid budget overruns. Easily said, but these are the things that actually cause the problems and the failure of projects. Scope creep. This is a silent budget killer. New requirements are added mid-project. So after a design has been completed, there are new requirements identified, and these are added in at a later stage. So there are design revisions, there's rework, there's possibly changes at site level. And remember that changes at design cost 10% of what changes in installed work costs. So constant changes to specifications result in delays to procurement and increased costs. New ideas without new funding can also be disastrous. To try and change the emphasis of a project partway through can be disastrous because it may mean that the original project can't be fulfilled. Give you an example of this. This is the Nimrod project. I heard a presentation many years ago from the Nimrod project manager who had explained why his project failed, because there were too many requirements placed on the project to deliver too much functionality from an airframe that existed, which was finite and couldn't be changed, and yet there was continual scope creep to require the aircraft to do more, and the funding wasn't available. So in the end, the project was scrapped. Growing complexity compounds costs, and this it can be seen everywhere. Keeping it simple is the ideal way to make good progress and have successful projects. Tried and tested is better than innovative. Poor communication. This can have a great impact. So this is poor communication with investors, between consultants, design consultants, between contractors and consultants, with the local authorities and the statutory authorities, the electricity, water and gas authorities, and end users. So all these parties are stakeholders in a project, and stakeholder communication is an essential part of what a project manager's job, to ensure that everyone is informed fully about what's happening and what the implications are, what the corrective actions are to pull things back if they're going wrong. The hidden risks that nobody sees. Most people focus on the visible problem, but there's a real danger in the accumulation of hundreds of small decisions. Each one seems harmless on its own, but cumulatively they can have a dramatic effect. So you need to keep an eye on the detail of a project as well. Lessons that I've learned from major projects, some of these are £1 projects that apply to developments of any size. The principles are the same. Infrastructure projects, rail projects are extremely complex and require full safety and quality discipline and a strict quality control. Commercial property, international developments in the Middle East, in Azerbaijan, in the Bahamas, in Africa, major project public works. So these are a wide variety of projects from which I've gained experience. And you don't need to be a contractor to understand why projects fail. Risks need to be identified and managed and mitigated. Planning needs to be carried out on all aspects of the project from the early stages, and measurement of progress and corrective actions carried out. Governance of the project is vitally important to ensure that the right controls are in place and the delivery of the project needs to be managed. How we apply this at Alpus, we have got a system for managing our projects. It's called the Alpus system. A stands for acquire property, and we can acquire property in many ways. We can acquire it through joint venture. We can purchase the property. We can exchange contracts with a delayed completion. We can do creative ways of property acquisition using creative funding principles like vendor finance. We leverage our team's expertise, so we've got many years of experience between us, and we can leverage that experience and expertise in order to put the right constraints and the right parameters on the project brief. P is for project design. This is the important stage of evaluating the design alternatives, carrying out feasibility studies on the project designs, and choosing one selected design as a favorite for progression and for undertaking. U is for undertake delivery. So this is the translation of the existing condition into the proposed project design. This is the implementation phase of the project. And S is for safe, secure investment returns. The biggest lesson is that successful projects are rarely spectacular. They're disciplined, they follow process and systems, they manage risk. They make thousands of good decisions consistently because the team is geared up to focus on the outcome and to make the right decisions to achieve the outcome. It's not about brilliance, it's about consistency. If you've ever wondered why projects fail, I've given you an overview in this video of why they fail. If you want to know more about your project, then don't hesitate to contact me. That's Alan at alpusgroup.com. You can telephone me on 07539141257. From outside the UK, that's +44 7539 141257. Or you can schedule a call with me at calendly.com/AlanJE. Don't forget to like our video, comment in the box below about anything you found helpful about the video or your own experience. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Alpus Group or Alpus Property Development or Alan Edwards Official.